Thank you for coming, Robert, and thank you for tuning in. Incumbent unopposed candidate for the Winooski School Board. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Robert. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
I can now. Awesome. We are all set. So we've prepared a list of questions for you, Robert, that you've received. You'll have 90 seconds to answer each question, more or less, here. And if you're tuning in live, here we also welcome your questions. You can call in at 802-862-3966. You can call in and we'll do our best to put your call for Robert on the air. We're going to ask you to share your name, the town that you live in, and we'll also make sure that your question is not a repeat of prior questions that have already been asked. So those are the ground rules, and we'll start with just a 1-minute opening statement. Robert, if you want to just tell us why you're running and how you're qualified to serve on the Winooski School Board and what will be different in Winooski schools if you are reelected.
Sure. Thank you for having me. As always, I'm a huge fan of CCTV and the service that you provide. I'm running for re-election. I've just completed one 2-year term, and now I'm running for the 3-year seat that's open because Kamal Dahal has decided not to run for re-election. I bring to this role not just the 2 years most recently serving, but also years of other municipal government experience, including previously on this board a long time ago, back in 2010, 2012. Time on the city council, time on various committees and commissions. And at this particular time, I bring some, I think that experience is important because we've had a lot of turnover since the pandemic, which is a problem throughout the state on school boards. It's difficult work with often very thankless. And here in Winooski, that's meant a lot of turnover. Like I said, I actually became chair after just 6 months on the board because our previous chair had to step down, and then the chair who replaced her also stepped down. So I was the third chair in just that 2-year term. In fact, the fourth chair overall since the pandemic. So I think this is a time where a little continuity that I can provide would be very helpful to the
Great. Well, thank you for stepping up, Robert, and thank you for joining us tonight to talk about your service on the school board and your campaign for re-election. So we'll start here just with a question about the school budget. So do you support the school budget that's presented here, $33.29 million? And along with that, how are you thinking about addressing the challenges facing the state education fund and the impact of that on Winooski schools and taxpayers?
Absolutely. Absolutely support the budget, having just participated in the budget building process here. We approached this year's budget with a strong understanding of the general political mood and just in general how tight things are for a lot of folks. Last year, the budget we passed had some pretty significant investments, and we were able to do that thanks to Act 127 coming online. And in fact, taxpayers in Winooski saw actually a significant decline in their tax rate, despite the large investment that we made. Unfortunately, because we were also going through a reappraisal last year, folks didn't realize the savings of that significant decrease in the rate because the values of their properties generally went up. We saw nearly a doubling in the average value of single-family homes in Winooski. And so recognizing a lot of other things, we approached this year's budget very cautiously, asked the superintendent to present 3 scenarios: a absolutely zero increase, a purely inflationary increase, and a completely level services increase. But that level services increase would have been about 7.2%. Where we ended up is at about a 4.13% increase, somewhere in the middle. recognizing the many costs that are outside of our control, but also some compromises, including reduction in faculty positions and staff positions. The superintendent was able to realize about 1.5 million in savings in various ways to offset some of the cost burdens that were outside our control, such as a 12% increase in health insurance. The third year in a row that we've had double-digit increases in insurance for school districts to have to absorb. Yeah, so short answer, I do support the budget, and I think we were able to find a happy medium there with that 4.13% increase, which for your single-family homeowner would equal about a 1 cent decrease in the tax rate with the numbers we currently have from the state, which, as always, are up in the air until the end of the legislative session.
Right. Now let's move on, Robert, to thank you for that. Appreciate that. And let's talk a little bit about the political climate right now. So given the current administration, the federal administration's efforts to cut funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, end immigration, remove safeguards for transgender people, what does the school district need to do to protect the community and individual civil rights?
Yeah, it's a rough time. I think Winooski in particular, we're a very unique district. About 20% of our students are multilingual learners. It means that English is not their first language for a variety of reasons. We have a lot of refugees who have resettled to Winooski, and right now, what we hear from students is a lot of fear. That's not conducive to learning. It's hard to learn when you just really don't know, when each day brings a new scary thing. And a lot of misinformation out there in the world too, to add to the very real threats. What we're doing, what the district has said, and what I fully support is, we have the policies we have in place, and we will continue to enforce those policies to ensure the safety and sense of belonging that we've been able to build for our students and our faculty and our whole community within the school, regardless of the ongoing uncertainty at the federal level. We are going to continue to enforce the policies we have and protect the most vulnerable students and that we have.
Thanks, Robert. I want to ask a follow-up question there that's not really on the script, so it's forgive me for going a little bit off the rails here, but just the administration has seemed to really ramp up the activities of ICE, and some school districts around the country are starting to think about their policies or the extent to which they are willing to collaborate or refuse to collaborate with immigrations and customs enforcement on deportation efforts. Do you have any thoughts on that as far as your position on the school board and where you'd like to see the Winooski School Board come down on that issue?
Yeah, we took up a first reading of a sanctuary policy that has been drafted by our superintendent in collaboration with groups like the ACLU. And we will be continuing with the second reading of that at our next regular meeting next Wednesday. And that includes a number of different pieces that we feel would potentially help with the safety and security of our students, so they, feel safer within the school. But that's resulted in a lot of intense discussion already, and that's going to continue. There's a lot of question there of what is legally within our scope, and we'll be, as part of the meeting, sitting down with our attorneys, to have a more in-depth discussion about some of those pieces. We all on the board, from as far as I'm concerned, care about doing as much as we can. And, we're doing our due diligence now on this particular possible option.
Great. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. Let's move on now to just a general question about the challenges facing the Winooski school system right now. What, in your view, is the biggest challenge facing Winooski schools, and how would you plan to use your seat on the school board to address this issue?
Sure, it's a big question. We just got finished talking about the greater federal issues, and that's going to probably be in the background of just about everything we do in the coming years. But also there's right here in the state a lot of pressure in the legislature from the governor to make some pretty significant changes to how we provide and how we pay for education in the state. The proposals that have been thrown about so far, and likely more to come, all have significant implications for Winooski, where we've made some significant strides in recent years in finally getting some updated weighting systems in place through Act 127, where we're actually able to provide a much stronger, more equitable education than we have been able to with the previous weighting system. And there seems to be an unfortunate amount of appetite within the legislature across party lines to re-examine those weights just before we've even gotten a chance to get very far with that. So, we're paying very close attention to what the legislature might try to do, and will, me as chair and others will be out there strong advocates for the work that we're doing, which is making a difference for our students. So I think that's probably going to be one of the big ones in the coming years.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Robert. Let's talk about neurodivergent students in the Winooski school system. How do Winooski schools support neurodivergent students, and what's the school board's role in that?
Yeah, so the school board's role in general is very higher level, setting policy, and that's particularly true in the Winooski district, where we follow what's actually called the policy governance model, where we focus almost 100% on policy and not delve into the day-to-day procedures. But what I can say about this particular question is we've come a long way with individualized learning plans in Winooski and now throughout the state. But some of the earliest work on that started in Winooski and Burlington, actually way back when I was on the board the first time, through what was called the Partnership for Change. And we were the first districts to experiment with more with these learning plans, with making learning fit what students are actually interested in. And I think for neurodivergent students in particular, that's really valuable. Students get to really set how they're going to learn. There are some, of course, still basic requirements that all students have to meet to graduate, but having that control for any student, but yes, again, for a neurodivergent student, I think makes a huge difference. It's certainly come a long way from the way education was put on me, and it's a one size fits all back in the day. Now it's there's something for everybody, and you can really see it when at the end of the semester, our students will present their individualized learning projects that they do in a big expo, and you can tell that the students really care a lot about what they've done because it's something that they're actually interested in.
Well, thanks so much, Robert. I want to move ahead to question number 7 on your list here, which is about mental health, and just hear your thoughts on how Winooski schools can best support student mental health needs at this time.
Sure. This is a really difficult question, not for me, but in general, how we know that we have a crisis amongst our children in general, high levels of depression and anxiety, and that have really spiked since the pandemic and haven't really gone away. And again, the greater countrywide world is not helping. And there's a lot, this actually goes back to the finance question, because there's a lot that schools are asked to do, particularly in this state, around these kinds of issues that has a cost associated with it. But the question always comes up, why do schools have to do these things? Well, you can't teach a student until you've dealt with things like hunger, until you've dealt with things like the person's mental state, the depression, anxiety, etc. And in this state, we really do put that in the hands of the school districts. We have again, it's a difficult, it's a statewide issue. It's a complex issue, and I think the starting place is just making sure that students feel supported and safe in their school.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for maybe just one more question here. Does that sound right? Yeah. So. Let's talk about how the school district measures success. Standardized test results suggest that the proportion of Vermont students proficient in math and English has decreased during the pandemic and has not made significant improvements since. So how do you measure the success of the school district, and how should the school board measure the success of the school district?
Yeah, this comes up a lot for Winooski in particular. Our students frequently don't do as well on standardized tests as others in the state to begin with, for a variety of complex reasons, because of our large number of multilingual learners, because 3/4 of our students are experiencing poverty. All these things contribute to difficulties. And so, it comes up a lot for us as a board. How do we measure that success? And as a policy governance board, we have something called our end statement, which is similar to a mission vision in other municipalities or other school districts. And we've had a lot of interesting conversations this year about how we are actually going to quantitatively measure that we are meeting the goals of that end statement, which probably the biggest one is that all students are graduating college and career ready. And how do we measure that? And so we've talked about a lot of the data points, like how many students are going to college who want to go to college, how many students are going on to other alternatives to college that want to do that instead, things of that nature. But even on the standardized test question, we saw that our students actually did improve year over year in the last numbers that were presented to the board. Although I don't think that I've seen the most recent numbers parsed out for Winooski yet, but they were still below the state average, but they were showing improvement year over year. And I think that's pretty valuable, because typically those standardized tests are used against us in Winooski, but we were able to show some improvement.
Great. Thank you so much, Robert, for joining us. I think we just have maybe another 30 seconds or so if you just want to share how folks can get in touch with you or engage with the school board before we wrap up here.
Sure, we're always glad to hear from folks. My email is rmillar@wsdvt.org, or robert@robertmillar.org if you prefer my campaign email. And that's usually the best way to get a hold of me. And I'm always happy to hear from people and answer questions. Engagement is the best way for us to make our decisions. So.
Great, thank you so
for
much.
having me.
Yeah, thank you, Robert Millar, for coming and joining us for this candidate forum here. And thank you for tuning in to Town Meeting TV's ongoing coverage of the 2025 Town Meeting Day election. You can find this forum and many more on cctv.org/TMD2025. And don't forget to vote on March 4th, and then tune into Town Meeting TV's results recap show that evening after the polls close. Thanks so much for watching.